Just because you think it's easy to, I don't know, make handmade purses or, travel the world and take photographs, like that's not the norm for everyone.
Are you an RV person, or are you just RV life curious, wondering how people live in a tiny space with their family 24/7? Either way, this is a podcast for you. My name is Kate White, and I travel full-time with my family and 2 kids and the dog in an RV. Every week, I sit down either with a fellow RV woman to discuss why she chose RV life and how she has changed on the road, or with a special guest who speaks on a topic relevant to travel life. Pull a chair up to the fire and let's chat. Hello, Danelle, and welcome to the RV Queens podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm excited to chat today. So I have to say this off the top. Full disclosure, you are not an RV woman yet.
Not yet.
You're
I
more
have
in
my
the
mini Airstream on my desk someday.
I was going to say you're in the daydreaming phase.
Really?
Yeah. Have you toured Airstreams? How do you know it's Airstream specifically that you're wanting?
We've looked at used ones, new ones, retro ones. We've been close to buying one, but we don't have a big enough truck to haul one. So then it became this other bigger issue. So then we had babies and all the things. So
it's in the works. In the subconscious works. Okay, so I asked you to come on the podcast today for a couple of reasons. The first one is we have a lot of women who listen to the podcast and are active in the RV Queens community who are running online businesses and are wanting to connect with their audience through storytelling, and specifically telling their story in a compelling way to connect with the audience, And the second is because I think PR is really powerful for brand growth, and there's not very many people in the RV travel space talking about it. We're going to dive into those, but before we do, I want to talk about you a little bit. And your career has a very unique and surprising start. Can you tell us what happened when you were a junior in high school?
Yeah. So I grew up thinking I was just going to be a nurse or a doctor. My mom's a nurse and I love helping people, but I got into anatomy and physiology and math and science. And it's this is not my thing. So I kind of stumbled into an opportunity to work on a anti-tobacco grant back in the early 2000s. Big Tobacco had to give each state hundreds of thousands of dollars to help educate the communities on how bad tobacco is after they got everybody super excited about their swag and all the things when kids wanted candy cigarettes. So it was kind of the opposite of that. So I was 17 years old and me and some classmates applied for a $100,000 grant and actually won it. I just proclaimed myself to be the self-appointed PR person and quickly taught myself how to promote things. We hosted rallies, parades, events, health fairs. I wrote press releases with help from Google. I was literally Googling how do you write a news script or write a radio commercial. So I just really fell in love with it from just jumping in at an early age and kind of seeing the possibilities, and ended up going to the University of Nebraska in Omaha and getting a degree in journalism and PR advertising to make it official. But yeah, I knew kind of at an early age, I was always a storyteller and photographer and just documenter of life. So I love that I get to do that for a living, to share people's stories.
What has your journey been from there to where you are today? You're running your own PR agency now.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. Straight out of college, I worked at an ad agency. It was during the Mad Men days, so it was super cool to get to be in the agency world. I was the only woman on the creative team, just like Peggy. So it was fun. From there, I had an opportunity to manage a band and go overseas for 30 days. So I'm just kind of a wandering wanderluster who's sure, let's do this. My husband's a bass player and I got him into the band that was touring. We did a 30-day tour for the troops in Japan and Korea, Kwajalein, Guam, all these little islands. It was an amazing experience. And I came home from that and needed another job. So then I ended up in the nonprofit world for about 10 years. I worked at the American Red Cross. doing kind of disaster public relations and affairs and just deployed for disasters. So traveling's always been a big part of like my DNA and kind of what fuels me. And now I kind of worked at a couple other ad agencies in between, but I kind of saw behind the curtain of how I could do this on my own and support my own family and have friends and people on my team, and decided to make that leap about 7 years ago. So I've started Passport PR with the nod to the traveling and the kind of doors that passports can open. And I work with clients in the lifestyle, travel, and food spaces. So it's fun that I get to kind of tie all my passions into one fun job.
Yeah, you know how to tell lots of different stories because of all of the different places you've worked for and places you've been. I mean, I'm just imagining like going from like the Mad Men style office ad agency, working with, you know, high level brands, and then also knowing the nonprofit space, not to mention all your traveling with bands and stuff. It's like a whole other color of things. You know a lot about crafting story. When you look at how small business owners talk about themselves and their businesses, what are common mistakes that you often see?
Yeah, I often hear people tell me, well, you know, I don't really have a story. I just do X, Y, or Z, or I sell tea towels or a product. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Like everyone has a story. And there's just, you know, that origin story of like, how did you come to be like an amazing artisan or, you know, a business person running like an agency? Like we all have stories and something that kind of formed us to want to like go in those directions. So it just kind of takes a little bit of work to kind of pull it out of some people. Some people aren't natural storytellers and they don't see their superpowers. So you have to remind them, just because you think it's easy to, you know, I don't know, make handmade purses or, you know, travel the world and take photographs, like that's not the norm for everyone. So you just have to kind of pull it out of them to realize how special it really is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like I meet women like that every day that I just want to be like, you are so amazing, you know?
I agree.
Okay.
I have clients like that all the time. They don't see their
Right.
superpower, but I see it. So I'm glad I get to help them.
For a solopreneur who doesn't have a marketing person on their team yet and maybe has that feeling of like, oh, my story is nothing special. They don't feel like they're a good writer, all these kind of things. What are your tips on how they can tell their story in a compelling way that really draws people in?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of maybe starting with like making maybe a timeline of your life. I have an amazing coach that I've been working with too. Her name is Dora. Shout out to Dora. And she had me do this just to even like put myself in my client's shoes. Like, you know, what drives you, whatever your passion. So then you can kind of see like how you got onto your path, because what makes people like really drawn into your stories is just the authenticity of, you know, where you're coming from, and that, you know, they can kind of see like a glimpse behind the person or the brand. And that's so important when you're, you know, a solo brand and you don't think what you're doing is all that special, but it really is, because a lot of times you're working with your family or your friends, or it's like a family tradition or a recipe or something that it's just so special, but it might not seem like that. So just really trying to identify like maybe the history behind it or something that's unique or odd. It's like the news writing and reporting tactics I learned back in journalism school. Like if it's unique or odd or something that's timely, those are the things that always kind of draw people in and makes it something they want to follow along and be part of.
So writing out a timeline and then focusing on something that's unique or odd or different. Yeah, I think we could all do that in one way or another if we would just sit down, pen and paper. Okay, so let's talk about PR. Like I mentioned before, this is a really powerful way for people to get their name and their brand in front of more eyeballs. And not many people in this RV space that we're in here and our audience members are part of, I don't see a lot of people talking about this. So break down some basics for us. For example, what is paid media versus earned media versus shared media? Like, let's just get some basics out there.
Yeah. So when you say public relations, people instantly think of, I think, a million different things. And it's more than, you know, just getting on the news or in the newspaper. There are outlets that you personally own, like your social media accounts, your websites. Those are your owned media accounts that, you know, if something would shut down, that you can kind of keep on going, telling your story, your website, your blogs, those kinds of things. And then, of course, you have your social medias, like all the kind of shared channels that you can collaborate with others on. And then earned media are kind of my specialty in my business, is trying to share stories for clients with newspapers, magazines, TV shows, those kinds of things. So you're not paying for the story. It's just you're kind of earning that by, getting someone's attention, a producer, editor, to get them to tell the story. And then you can also buy media for like advertising, sponsored post. So a lot of like collaboration kind of things that you can do. Influencers, I think there's probably a lot of travelers and people in your world that kind of love to do those things and work with partners as they're traveling. So I kind of consider that a form of PR too, those kinds of partnerships and collaborations. So yeah, there's a lot of fun things you can do within the PR kind of bucket. And it's all just basically telling your story, elevating your brand, and just trying to add some of that credibility to what you're trying to accomplish for your brand too.
And you mentioned earned media is a specialty of yours. What do you enjoy so much about that?
I really love just getting to connect people. I've been telling people recently, I feel like a matchmaker. It's like my hidden talent. I get to go and find like a client or just a human that's doing something amazing and connect them with a reporter or a storyteller. And it really fills my cup to be able to like see them, even if the client or the person I'm introducing doesn't necessarily care about being on GMA or Forbes, but they have such a cool story and we land those placements. That's like a dream for me. I think I get more excited than my clients sometimes. I'm like, you guys, we scored Forbes, or, all these really cool outlets that, growing up, it's just, something you dream of when you're going to journalism or PR school, to get to work at those publications.
Since you brought this up, I'm going to ask a potentially dumb question, because I think a lot of people wonder this. A lot of lay people like myself that don't know a lot of PR. Whenever you see someone like you or another creator who's been featured in, like you said, Forbes, Good Morning America, they're on the Today Show, whatever, and you see that their website's like been featured in blah, 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 all this big name national media, what is going on behind the scenes that gets them that level of exposure?
It's usually a whole lot of work that you don't see behind the scenes. Sometimes people, there's things that go viral that can kind of like just put you in the spotlight really easy. I had a few clients that had some products that went viral, and we were lucky to be able to like leverage that and like just go even farther with it, to be in like all the beauty magazines and Today and GMA and all those things. So that was kind of an unusual set of circumstances that launched them into that like overnight. But usually it's a lot of strategy. You're planning, you're trying to get on the radar of producers or editors, and like they're looking for certain stories, knowing like their editorial calendars and schedules, and if it's a print magazine that it's 6 months out, so you're pitching in the summer for a holiday gift guide. So it's just a whole lot of trying to build relationships, maintaining like the integrity of like what you're presenting to them, and just being creative to get their attention. I think that's the most important part. Otherwise, if you're not a good storyteller, they're not going to be interested in taking it and presenting it to their own readers. So it's just a whole lot of things that happen to get those little placements.
You're like, it's a whole lot of work.
But it's so fun.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of hard work. It seems like it's like magic overnight, but behind the scenes, it's like taking months and months of work. Okay, so if you were a travel mom who was running a business from the road, kind of like in pockets of time in their days and their evenings and nights, what's like a basic PR strategy that you would have in place? And what I'm thinking here is kind of like a minimum viable strategy to include, in your weekly and monthly tasks. If nothing else, I will at least do this every week. What would you do?
Yeah, normally when I would like start working with a client, I would just kind of have them help me like figure out like if they have certain goals, like if they would like to be featured in like a magazine, or they want to start doing public speaking, or they want to win an award. There's like all these different ways that kind of help you share your story. So I would just maybe have your audience just kind of think about like what would their big dream be, like to secure, if it's like they want to reach out to, the local newspaper before they get into town to share if they're coming. And, there's just like some strategy behind all that. And if they only have like, an hour a day or a week just to try and like document, your life on the road, I feel like that's so interesting and it's intriguing to people like me who daydream about doing that, and just really sharing like the behind the scenes, those kinds of things. Like if they have ways to share that with a blog or a newsletter or social media, just being, capturing things along the way, because that's something that's really important too when you're working with the media, is being able to have those assets like the photos and the videos. So just kind of gathering things up and being strategic about sharing those with the right people if that's, of interest to them, I guess.
I love it. Have a goal, figure out what you're doing. Figure out what the media is going to need from you. Yeah. At this point in your career, you mentioned that you have really niched down to work with the lifestyle, food, and travel sectors. And this RV Queens podcast community is just full of ambitious women, many of whom we're traveling full time, and we're keeping at least one, if not multiple revenue streams coming in as we're traveling. So how does someone know if they're ready to work with a PR agency like you to take their brand to the next level?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just you have to have some time to be able to dedicate to putting time towards okay, I'll come up with the strategy, my clients will approve it. But a lot of times if we're securing media, we'll need to set up interviews. We'll need to make sure people have some availability to be able to either meet in person or, chat online to do an interview. For my clients that are newer, startups, just making sure that they're established enough online to have some breadcrumbs to lead reporters to. So making sure that they have their website and their socials and everything just really locked down, the branding, everything good to go. Because if you get the opportunity to be in some big national media and you don't have an inventory or a process to do your service or whatever you're trying to sell, it can quickly turn into a nightmare because you can't fulfill the orders on the back end. So just making sure that my clients are prepared and ready. And I do help coach for how to do interviews, if it's a TV interview versus a print or radio interview. So I help people kind of get prepped and ready to go, but they have some work that they need to do before we can even start doing our work together too.
What questions am I not asking about PR and storytelling that you think are really important for small business owners and especially women to know?
It's a good question too. So I work with a lot of women and moms who are business owners, and I just love that a lot of us, we have little kids just trying to keep all the things, all the balls up in the air and get all of our tasks done and still spend time with their families. And I feel like that's a really unique thing. When we're sharing our stories as female, mom entrepreneurs too, it's just the legacy that we're kind of showing to our children, and that we're able to show them you can do anything. You can, be on the road and have a business and spend time with your kids, or you can, be at the beach on, extended times and not have to be sitting at a desk. So I just feel like it's really cool that our generation of women is, our parents were really creative and I think innovative too, but we just have all these new tools that allow us to go anywhere and do anything essentially. So I just love being able to share the stories of the multi-generational businesses and the people who are sharing their crafts across different ages. And I just think it's a really unique time to be alive to get to share what we're doing.
I totally agree. I think that every day. I'm what? This is, if even just 50 years ago, if you could have our grandmas look into what our lives are like these days, it's insane. We live in a tiny home, but look, we have running water. We have a bathroom in here. We can do laundry in here. We've got the internet so people can work remotely. It's just I know. It's craziness. I love that perspective. I usually end every episode asking the guest about the unexpected richness they found from RV life. But today I'm going to ask you, what's the unexpected richness you found from helping business owners craft their stories and get media attention?
I just feel like I've been able to help their dream to be able to, go to the next level. There's been so many opportunities for me just to be able to use my connections and my gifts to be able to help share their stories. And I've become friends with like all of my clients. So it's like a big family affair. And I love that when I get to travel and do events with clients, that it's just like, you're a big family. And one of my clients is Junkstock. It's a big vintage festival here in Omaha that people travel from all over, the country to come to. And it's like a big family reunion when you get to get a bunch of creatives together and just be able to share each other's stories. And it's just really fulfilling to get to help people grow their businesses in that way.
Yeah, and you mentioned you're kind of a connector, and I could see that. It would be fun to just be a part of all the all the media huzzah, and you're like, look at all these people I've connected to make this happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Will you share with our audience where they can connect with you online and also check out what services you have to offer?
Yes, the easiest way is to go to passportpr.com. My business is also on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I have personal Instagram and socials and all those things too. But my website will get you where you need to go.
And I'll plug that into the show notes. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Danelle. And hopefully I will see you when we're back in Omaha. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode and for being my favorite part of RV life. If you could please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, that would be awesome. And listen, if you want to have conversations like I had on this episode with your fellow RV women, head to rvqueenspodcast.com/community and choose your RV Queen Circle today. All right, guys, I'll see you next week, or hopefully I will see you on the road. You are so amazing.